Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Terry White, worldwide design and photography evangelist for Adobe, and it's my pleasure to be streaming to you live on this beautiful Tuesday morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are. For me, it's noontime, but I know we're normally monitoring these from San Francisco, so good morning, folks in San Francisco on Adobe Live team, as well as all the people around the world watching live, and of course those who will watch the replay. We're going to continue on our daily creative challenge, more importantly, our daily photography challenge, which is the first challenge we've done combining both Lightroom and Photoshop. We typically do the photography challenges with just Photoshop, but as I've explained many times during this challenge, a lot of people use Lightroom to manage their photos, Lightroom to do a lot of adjustments to their photos, and Photoshop to do the stuff that Lightroom can't do. So with that said, thanks for joining me once again. We're really cranking along here. I can't believe we're on Tuesday. There's only 3 more days left of the challenge, but we've gotten a lot of great entries. I've seen a lot of the work that you guys have done with my images and your images, which is even more intriguing because I get to see new images and see what you do to them based on the challenges each day. So let's just do the quick recap for those that are new. If you are watching this for the first time and you're saying, what's the daily photography challenge and how do I get involved? Then we're going to do this. You're going to head over to your browser. In your browser, you're going to go to behance.net/challenge/Photoshop. So behance.net/challenge/Photoshop. That will get you to this page where you can sign up for the challenge and then see how the challenge works. So each day we release or unlock a new challenge around between 7 and 8 a.m. Pacific. And you can join the community chat. So you're on the Behance chat if you're watching this live. And by the way, I see some folks over on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. You really want to head over to behance.net/live/Adobe Live if you really want to participate in the chat. Because that's where it's really happening. So the community chat is where we chat live, and of course, after the fact, we head over to Discord, and Discord is where the chat keeps going 24/7. So if you want to upload your images, you want to get feedback on your images, you want to just talk to people, you want to get feedback on other things, you want to learn tips and tricks, that's where all that discussion happens in the community. And then, of course, once you are signed up and you've signed up to the chat, you can watch the daily live stream before each challenge, which is what we're doing right now. And then finally do the challenge and share your work. So each day we've unlocked a different challenge. We've unlocked photo editing and importing into Lightroom using the crop tool for recomposing, using geometry adjustments to straighten out your image, converting your image to a black and white, adding text to your image. And today's challenge is all about doing color adjustments to your image. Hang on 1 second here. I'm being alerted that there's a voice on the background. I can't imagine where that would be coming from. I don't have any browsers open. All right, there's a voice on the background. Where could that be? All right, I will try and troubleshoot that while we keep going, but let me quit out of some stuff here. You guys are hearing some random talking in the background. Again, I don't know where that might be coming from. But I'm going to head over to Discord just to show you that real quick. And then I'll quit out of Discord just in case there's some audio coming from that too. The voice seems to be gone now. Okay, good. It stopped. It's the music station? All right, well, there is some music going on in the background too, but again, that shouldn't be any voices. Anyway, maybe it was, I don't know, Slack. I quit out of Slack as well. Oh, I got a new note. Gone. Okay, thanks. All right, so it must have been Slack for some reason. I had Slack open on the side there. Okay, so once again, Discord, this is where it all happens as far as the discussion is, and this is where some of the entries have been imported already for yesterday's challenge with the text. And you're hearing only me. Great. That's all you should be hearing right now, plus maybe some slight music in the background, but mainly me. And then we've got So this is where you import your challenges or upload your challenges each day, and I'll take a look at them along with the rest of the community, and we'll give you heads up or feeds up or heads up or feedback about what's going on. All right, so great entries so far, especially the ones about text. So let's jump into today's challenge, which is all about color adjustments. So we can do these color adjustments several ways. I'm going to show you some Lightroom ways first, and then we'll jump into some Photoshop ways. And notice in the description we talked about curves, so we'll talk about that as well. All right, so with that said, today's image is this one. I'm going to open it up in the develop module. So I just hit the letter D. I'm going to hit reset just in case. So you should have this sunrise scene that I took in Iceland. It's all dark and not looking very great, and we're going to make some adjustments to it. So before we even worry about color, we always fix the things that need to be fixed with just about every image. So we head over to our lens correction. We enable that profile correction. We head over to the basic panel in Classic, and we do our great auto tone to get us started, to kind of look at all that detail it brought out in the rocks here. We kind of get a foundation that way. And of course, I can still see the shadows being clipped, so I can drag the black slider over just a little bit more, so that now I got a great place to start with my photo. So once again, if we were in the new Lightroom or Lightroom CC, it would be kind of the same thing. We would head over or head down to our optics. We'll apply that lens correction, and then we would head over to light, and we would do our auto tone. And again, it's giving me that foundation to get started. So we would do that in either one of those two cases. And if you were starting in Photoshop, I would still do that with Camera Raw or the Camera Raw filter. So once I got the foundation, now let's talk about the color. So there are several ways to adjust color inside of Lightroom. One of those ways is, of course, using the tone curve or curves. So in Classic, there's a tone curve panel. In standard Lightroom, there is the tone curve, which is, hang on 1 minute, how did I mean to bring that up? It is in the edit section, and it's the little curve button right here in the upper right hand corner. So that brings up your curves in the new Lightroom. So once I click that, it'll enable the tone curve, and no matter where you are, this is what the tone curve would look like. Whether I'm in Photoshop, Lightroom, Lightroom Classic, the tone curve looks the same. So what's the tone curve and how does it really work? Well, by default in Lightroom, you're adjusting the tonal values in the image, not necessarily the color. So for example, in the lower left-hand corner, you're dealing with the darkest parts of your image, your shadows. In the upper right-hand corner of this diagonal line, you're dealing with the lightest parts of your image, your highlights and the lights and whites of your image. In the middle, you're dealing with the midtones. And you notice that no matter where you drag along this line, you can click and add a point, or you can, I'm thinking Photoshop, you don't click and add a point, but you can click and drag up or down to make that adjustment. And then it will leave the adjustment where you had it. So if I wanted to brighten up the darkest parts of my image, I can come over here and just drag up to brighten up those darkest parts. Now, it's gonna make a curve, so it's gonna kind of like transform that adjustment up the curve there. So if I want to pull that part back down, I can. So you can adjust different parts of your image by just adjusting the tone curve to get it the way you want it to look. Now, I'm going to undo that. Multiple undos. I'm just going to undo it back to the way it was. And the other option would be at this button at the very bottom, which is click to edit the point curve. So when I do that, now you notice it switches over to RGB. So now I am affecting color. So one of the things I can do is I can just simply drag up and down the same way. It's affecting the tonal values and the color, but more importantly, I can go in with my targeted adjustment. I've shown you this before, this little target point. When I click it, and then I head over to the image itself, right on the canvas, Now I'm adjusting the colors that I am dragging up and down. I'm making drastic changes just so you can see it. But I clicked on the blues, and if I just adjust it ever so slightly, I'm adjusting the blues in that part of the image. If I come down here to the yellows or golds, I'm adjusting the gold or the sunrise in that particular part of the image. And again, you see it doesn't take a lot. Don't drag it a lot. It is really just a little bit of an adjustment to get it to look, to make a change. So you don't need to make a drastic change to see what it's going to look like. All right, so again, I'm going to undo a couple of those, get it back to the way it was. And you can also adjust individual colors. So I was adjusting the RGB. I can adjust just the reds, just the greens, just the blues. So if I go to reds, for example, and I grab that same targeted adjustment, I can go ahead and now I'm adjusting the reds in the image just by dragging up or down. And it's adjusting the red values in the overall image. Same thing if I were to go down to the greens, and now it's adjusting the greens in the image. And of course, if you drag it in one direction too far, it's going to give you the opposite color. If you imagine the color wheel, the opposite of wherever green is, it's going to give you that value. So same thing if I go to the blues. If I were to go over here and adjust the blues, I'm going to get that as well. Who knew this little thing had that power? Yes, it has lots of power, and this is why people love curves. Now, if curves still frighten you, like if curves are one of those things where like people just kind of like get freaked out about curves. I think I might have reset too far here, but let's go back. If you still get freaked out when you see the curves, there are other ways to adjust color. You don't have to use curves. If you go to the HSL color panel, this is a much easier way to make adjustments than the curve panel, in my opinion. The curve panel is extremely powerful. Lets you make the slightest minute adjustments across the entire tonal values of your image, across all the colors of your image. It's powerful. That's why people love it. But it's not easy. It's not hard. It's just not easy either. If you go to the sliders, they're not as precise, not as minute as an adjustment you can make with curves, but you can certainly use it easier. So just like, for example, if I wanted to change the colors, then I would go to the hues. If I wanted to change the values of the colors, meaning more of the reds, less of the reds, then I would go to saturation. So if I wanted to change the color, I go to hues. And for example, I can adjust the yellows and they start changing in color. So that's one way to do it. The other way is saturation. And for example, if I wanted my blues to be bluer, then I can go and adjust the blues bluer. So you have your choice of the saturation of a color or the actual hue of a color if you wanted that color to change. And you have the same targeted adjustment here as well. So that's why you don't have to figure out which slider. If I point at the blues and I drag it up, those blues get bluer. If I come over here and point at the yellows, those yellows get yellower. So it's the yellows and oranges. So it knows what colors are there. If I come over here, these are probably some of the greens. I don't know, maybe some more reds here. I can adjust those as well. I just noticed there's some moss on this rock. So if I click on the right spot, then I will get to the moss color, which is kind of yellowish green. All right, so those are the easier ways, in my opinion, to adjust the colors, but you pick whatever's best for you. And let's reset this photo, get it back to the way it was. Let's do those last couple things that we do. Auto. Bring out the shadows a bit. And now let's say that was my starting point, but I want to go do this in Photoshop. So I would Command E, Control E on Windows to edit or edit a copy, and that will take it over to Photoshop. And then once I'm in Photoshop, I can show you how you would do this in Photoshop. So you do have the exact same tone curve that you would use in the develop in Lightroom in Photoshop. It's under Filter, Camera Raw Filter. And when you go to Camera Raw Filter, click that second icon right here on all your icons, or these icons, because you got icons over here, but the icons on the right hand side, the second one is your curves. So that's the exact same curve that we just saw in Lightroom, both Lightrooms. It works the exact same way. And you switch between color with these two tabs. So the tonal values or the color values, just by switching between parametric and the point curve. So I could do the exact same thing this way, or if I'm coming to Photoshop, then chances are I probably wouldn't do it that way, because I'm in Photoshop, so I don't need to do it that way. Instead, I would come over here to the layers, and under my, I always forget what this button is called. Under my Create New Fill or Adjustment layer, you have a Curves Adjustment layer. So if you go to Curves, that will bring up a curve panel, the Photoshop version of the curve panel, which does allow you to adjust. You have your same targeted adjustment tool, but you have the ability to click points, and those points will stay there, and you can adjust accordingly. So again, the most minute adjustment to that curve panel will adjust the colors or tonal values in that range. And this is what I mean by you have more control. I can just ever so slightly bring up those shadows in the shadow area. I see the histogram, which is letting me know where all the data is. And if I wanted to bring down the highlights a bit from that sunrise, I can bring those down ever so slightly. I can adjust the RGB values or the individual colors. I can use the same targeted adjustment and drag that up or down to do the same exact thing. Curves are great for that type of work. And again, there's a million different ways to do color inside of Photoshop. So we could go to levels. We could, let's see. We do have the hue and saturation adjustment as well. So you can adjust your colors this way. You can go into individual colors with the different sliders, just like we did before, or the master color. So again, if I want to adjust the blues, I can adjust just the blues, dragging the slider, changing the blues to a different color, changing the saturation of the blues, or changing the lightness of the blues. And I didn't talk about luminance in the other panel, but that's what luminance would do. And you have that same targeted adjustment to adjust the individual color that you click on. So if I want that to be Planet on Fire, no problem. Drag it over, and now I've got Planet on Fire. Or drag it down and just really take that sun, that orange sun out. So you got, I think, more control in Photoshop than you do inside of Lightroom. But at the end of the day, you've got color control to your heart's content in either program to adjust your colors. So whether it's punching up the colors that are already there, dulling the colors that are already there, or changing what those colors look like, because maybe it's not, instead of yellow, it should have been green, maybe it should have been blue, whatever, you can do that. Now, there's one more thing I neglected to talk about, and this is probably another starting point kind of thing in Photoshop. Let me see if I have a different example. I just want to show it to you real quick. I'm sorry, starting in Lightroom. Let's see if I've got one here I can show you real quick. Yeah, here's one. All right, I'm gonna go to this photo. I've used this photo a million times. I'm gonna reset it. And as you can see, when I reset it, there's a real bad yellow color cast. Even, you know, it's not so bad. It's bad on the walls and the ceiling, because that should probably be white. But it's even affecting his shirt. It's affecting his head, his skin tones. They're just too yellow. So one of the first things you should do when it comes to adjusting color is fix the white balance. Then worry about the rest of the colors. And this is a form of color correction. So to do this quick fix for the white balance, we'll go back up to the basic panel in Lightroom Classic, and there's a big giant eyedropper right there. That big giant eyedropper is for white balance. So when I click on it, I would be looking for something that's around 18% gray. So his belt buckle is probably around 18, or should be around 18% gray. But let's say I didn't see the belt buckle. The next two things you'd look for, if you don't have something that should be gray, is something that should be black or something that should be white. So his shirt should be white. her blouse should be black. If I click on either one of those, then it fixes that white balance for me instantly. Now, proper white balance doesn't necessarily mean you like the tone of it, so you can still adjust the temperature. Maybe I still want to warm up the skin just a little bit more and adjust that temperature and make that image a little warmer. Not super yellow like it was, but just to warm up the skin so it's not super cold either. So just to make it look a little bit more human, we add a little bit more of that warmer temperature to something that even may be proper white balance, just so it looks better. All right, whew, that's a lot. I know that was a lot to take in, but start with white balance if you think your white balance is off. And by the way, if you shot in RAW, then you have presets for what the white balance should have been. If you were outside on a cloudy day, pick cloudy. If you were outside in the middle of the day, click daylight. And that will give you another way to start. And of course, even auto, if you're in doubt, just choose auto white balance and see what it does for you. But if it's a portrait or indoor shot, you can typically use the white balance eyedropper to get it just the way it should be. All right. With that said, let's head back over to our challenge. And so in this case, I'd probably pick the cloudy white balance to get this one started, because this was on a cloudy day. So if I were heading over and I had shot this in RAW and I had the ability to choose cloudy, it just gave me more of that richness in the sky of what that color should have been. Now you got a JPEG, so you probably don't have these presets, but just play around with your temperature slider to also warm up or cool off that color to get it the way you want. Okay, another informative, great day. Great, I'm glad you're liking it, Ralph. And so let's head over and do our export. So once again, I have a preset. For those of you who missed the preset, I made a preset called Export for DCC. And that preset basically does this. It puts it in a folder, makes it JPEG, sRGB, 100% quality, at least 1080 pixels on the longest edge. Includes the copyright and contact info only, and then it shows it to me when it's done. So when I do the export, I have my image to upload. That's all been color adjusted, color corrected. That's ready to go for the challenge. And of course, I didn't finish that image, but you get the idea. You've seen me do a lot today, so you're going to do it. And in Photoshop, if I were going to use this one, I would do my file, export, save for web legacy, or export as quick JPEG, and make it at least 1080 on the longest edge, and save that out, give it a name, save it out to wherever you're going to grab it from later, and then you would do your export from there. All right, so don't forget when you're uploading it to use the keyword PS Daily Challenge, and that way you would be able to, that way you'll export it and it will have the keyword that I'm going to be searching for when I'm looking for entries to add to my mood board. And of course, upload it to Discord so that you will have the ability to have it looked at by everyone, including myself, but the team of folks that are working on the daily challenge, and they can see all those wonderful entries that you guys are doing. All right, that was a lot, I know, but we had fun today. Hopefully you will go out now and do some cool things with color on this image or yours, or both. So if you got an image that was lacking in color or not quite the color, we went from converting your image from color to black and white. Now we're doing, making the colors look better. So if you've got a image that you want to play with and experiment with, I can't wait to see what you do with it. And just keep in mind that it doesn't matter if you're in Photoshop, doesn't matter if you're in Lightroom, you can affect the color going all the way from really punchy, all the way down to black and white to remove color. And speaking of punchy, one last tip real quick is that whether you're in Camera Raw filter or in Lightroom, if you I'm on the wrong layer, whether you're in Camera Raw or Lightroom and you want to make those colors a little more punchier, don't forget you have the vibrance and saturation slider, which will just take the overall, don't go too far, but the overall saturation of your image up. And I usually use this for landscapes like this one. Don't go too far, but landscapes like this one. And if I'm working with images with people in them, I prefer vibrance because it doesn't negatively affect the skin tones as much as the other one would. So with that said, thanks everyone for watching, and I hope you guys got something out of it. And we will catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Of course, it's sort of outdoor. I know everyone knows you for this one.
Everybody knows him.
Everyone knows.
Yeah, he is pretty popular because it's so rich in instruments, and it has that Saint-Tropez kind of vibe in it with the violins, and sounds rich, not in sound, but also it's very classy and rich in vibes.
I wanted to know because I feel knowing that you're coming from this old school breakbeat D&B jungle vibe. How much of an influence was DJ Shadow on this album?
Funny thing, yesterday I went to a festival and DJ Shadow was playing there, and it was the first time I ever saw him playing, and I know him for a long time. Of course, I know him from Introducing, which is one of my favorite albums.
Of course, classic.
And now he mixed up the old tunes with new trap and future bass kind of influences. And as I was standing there, I heard some of the old melodies, and was like, "Damn, it's close. It's getting closer to what I'm doing." So that basically answers the question. It's not something I'm really doing. I'm really aware of. I'm not thinking about DJ Shadow constantly when I'm making the album. But it's like, Adobe and Bonobo, all these guys are installed in your basic system, and you have your influences. You can never go